Come here. Get off.
Sunny days. Everybody loves them. Tell me, baby, can you stand the rain?
That's not where I thought you were going with that. I thought we were about to hit some Sesame Street.
Can you stand the
Why was
rain?
he right there, though?
Because bitch, it has a carrying case.
Is it there from when we
I'm fucking carrying this bitch like
videos the other day or pictures the other day?
I literally keep this thing like everywhere. Like I carry it in my purse, in my backpack.
Wow.
Like my friends are like, look, nigga, like stop.
My kid
Anyway,
taking mine.
welcome. Because she's really my kid. So welcome to this week's episode of Turn On. It's a little rainy outside, so I thought I'd serenade us a bit with some good tunes.
Yes, that's what that was.
Anyway. This week we are reading Along for the Ride, which was written by Mimi Grace in 2019. So sit back, relax, get your wine, get your weed, get your whatever you need, which may be a second mic, and enjoy.
Okay.
Along for the Ride by Mimi Grace. Abruptly, as if finally making up his mind, he made a detour toward the desk and grabbed his phone. He plucked away at it. Jolene squirmed in the silence, trying not to stare at the way his dick pressed against his pajama bottoms. Eventually, he looked up from his phone, and the intensity of the moment had not abated. He placed the shining mobile device in front of her face. My current STI test results. She studied the report and everything was in order. She quickly pulled up hers, fumbling with the login information as the Wi-Fi made things take longer than she appreciated. With each passing moment, however, she could feel the imaginary dial on her anticipation tick higher. She similarly placed her phone in front of him. He gave a nod when he finished reading. The desire between them moved in uninterrupted waves, pulsing and flowing in a way that made her feel lightheaded. And just as she got ready to do something to alleviate the buildup and ease the palpable tension, Jason eliminated the distance between them and pressed his lips to hers. Their first kiss had come unexpectedly and had been initially tentative, explorative. But this one was bolder and insistent. His firm lips pried hers open. There wasn't any teasing this time, just an urgent clashing of lips and tongues. His hands cupped her face and she clutched his trim waist, feeling the solid muscle underneath. He pressed his body into hers and she felt his erection up against her. Her body responded to it with the beginning of a low thrum all over. Jolene, he moaned her name against her mouth, and it honestly sounded like a prayer, a benediction, and she wanted to be all that and more for him. His hands traveled down her body without breaking the kiss. She desperately wanted to feel his touch without the t-shirt hindering the experience. His hands found a home on both of her breasts, and he gave them an appreciative squeeze before he broke their kiss. He played with the weight of her breast, filling his hands with them, gently teasing and toying with her nipples through the shirt, drawing them to aching buds. She bit her lip so she wouldn't shout out, but then he lowered his head and took one t-shirt covered nipple into his mouth. The combination of his hot mouth and the abrasive fabric of her shirt took her to an edge she'd never gone before with just nipple play. She needed him inside her. He played with the nipple till the fabric became completely soaked, and then gently blew on it. He did the same with the other nipple, then finally released her. "Take your shirt off," he said, his voice rough. The desire she saw in the depths of his brown eyes took all the air from her lungs, and with shaky hands, she removed her t-shirt. His harsh intake of breath turned the pulse that had begun in her core the minute he kissed her into an ache that needed to be taken care of. "You're so beautiful," he whispered. His voice had morphed into something unrecognizable, and his words, even spoken through a lustful haze, made a home in the back of her mind. He dipped his head and caught one of her already hard, wet nipples in his mouth and rolled the other between his fingers. "Please, Jason," she whimpered. Wetness had already built up between her legs and she throbbed. He released her nipple with a pop. "What do you want, Jolene?" he asked and moved to her other nipple, giving it a tender bite. "I want you inside me," she said boldly. "Which part?" Jason asked as he sucked harder on her nipple. The new pressure made her throw her head back, submitting to the sensation. "Which part?" he repeated, and with the back of his hand, he caressed her mound. "You know what part," she said, breathy and frustrated. "I want to hear you say it." God, they would not have a fight right now. Unable to resist, she defiantly said, "You're still Rod." He let go of her nipple for a moment and stood to his full height. He looked down at her, and he saw the smile that tried to press past his lips. "Or your dick or cock, if that's filthy language you prefer," she said flippantly. He did smile then, a crooked and devilish smile, and he followed it up with deliciously painful tugs on her nipples. He lowered his mouth to her ear. "I suspect," he said, guiding her hand to his dick where it strained against his pants, "you'd have no problem screaming for my dick when it's buried inside your tight little pussy." Dear God, hearing those words come out of Jason's mouth had Jolene battling a wave of dizziness. This couldn't be real, but it had to be because he continued to lazily move her hand up and down his length. The thick vein running on the underside of his dick pulsed, seemingly intent on drawing every last particle of air from Jolene's lungs. But unfortunately, he removed her hand from him. "Tonight, I won't get to hear you beg for it. We don't have any condoms." She desperately clutched at his biceps then and tempered a wail of disappointment. She must have been some sort of ruthless mercenary in a past life. What other explanation could there be? The universe had decided to punish her by denying her an orgasm she knew in her gut would be one of the best she'd ever had. He couldn't leave her like this, needing, so desperately needing. He gave her collarbone kisses and chuckled against her skin. "Don't worry, I'm still going to make you come. It just won't be with my cock," he said. "That will have to come later." "Later?" He gently guided her to the open door of the bathroom and pushed her up against the door jamb. She almost made a tepid joke about them not using a perfectly good bed, but then he removed his shirt. Words evaded Jolene as her hands automatically skimmed the slabs of muscle on Jason's arms, and she briefly traced his tattoo. He dropped to his knees. "Spread your legs." Any obstinacy she had previously wanted to display fled away at the command. She did what he said, and a harsh sound escaped Jason. He moved his fingers along her folds. Those damn fingers worked her wetness up and down. They lightly teased her clit till she deliriously moaned his name. Jason. Is your pretty pussy wet for me, Jojo? Soft, airy sounds escaped Jolene's mouth before Jason hooked her right leg over his left shoulder and pushed her other leg to the side. She couldn't hide here. She was completely and utterly exposed to his gaze, his touch, and she shivered with anticipation as he breathed on her just before his mouth finally pressed onto her sex. She almost collapsed, but his hands held her fast. His tongue parted her lips and twirled around her clit, lapping her wetness. He moved his tongue in and out of her opening before he finally took a hold of the sensitive button and covered it with his entire mouth, sucking and toying with it. Jolene held onto the door frame and focused on her body falling apart. That was all she could do. She was thrown, however, when she caught the image of them in the cheap, full-length mirror that hung against the front door on the opposite side of the room. She barely recognized the desire she saw in her own face, so blatant and raw. Jason kneeled at her feet and did the things he did to her, and at some point along the way, he had also released his erection from his pants and now jerked himself off with long, lazy strokes. Energy coursed through her, and when he added a new dynamic by sliding a finger inside of her, it pushed her dangerously close to the edge. "Come for me," he moaned against her as he added another finger. The simple prompt did it for her. Jolene screamed and grabbed his hair as he continued to pump his fingers in and out of her until she was hurled into an orgasm that was all light. Her body shook, but he refused to let go of her clit. The two fingers that were inside of her continued to move, and before she could recover from her first orgasm, another one came calling. He released her clit once she came for the second time, gently blowing on and caressing her as she recovered. She said, trying to formulate words after an orgasm that she was sure shifted the tectonic plates of the earth. Only after a couple breaths did she notice that Jason still stroked himself, but this time faster and harder. He stood, bracing himself against the door jamb behind her, caging her in as he buried his face in the crook of her neck and moaned inarticulate words. She didn't want to disrupt his rhythm by attempting to take over, so she rolled his nipples between her fingers and ran her fingernails down his back. He hissed as she made contact. "Just like that, baby," he said. He went still as she increased the pressure with which she touched him. Fuck, Jolene, I'm coming." He quickly snatched up the pajama bottoms that had pulled around his ankles and released against the fabric, and Jolene pouted, somewhat disappointed that he hadn't finished somewhere on her body. But she wasn't about to complain about something like that after what she'd just experienced. Jason hunched over for a few minutes before he straightened and looked at her and smiled. Her breath caught. She assured herself it was the residuals of her orgasm and watching him come. "That was great," he said. A shiver passed through his body as Jolene continued to lightly skim his back with her fingertips. Jolene could only muster a weak laugh.
And we are back. Thank you, Killa, for that lovely reading of a good scene. Like, I was reading it, it was like...
So here's the thing. So first of all, that scene is amazing. And it's really, really well written. Like, Mimi's writing is... Like, there's never a false step. everything flows really well. That's not always the case. Like, and you don't necessarily understand that when you're reading something just for yourself. But when you start trying to read that shit out loud and you start stumbling and bumbling.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, all right.
Yeah. But also, I feel like there's some things we didn't think through that well in moving to video. So.
Oh, is you recording?
Yeah. So me reading these things where no one can see me, because you're not even with me when I record these at this point, because your ass used to fall asleep and be on your phone. Listening to the soothing sounds of my voice.
I would literally fall asleep. Like, y'all would hear me breathing heavy on the mic.
Bitch, we can hear you snore. You've got to stop.
Anyway.
But it hadn't occurred to me that people will be watching me read really steamy.
Good scenes.
Yes. So like trying to keep my face together, and because there's so much acting that goes into this, which I never really thought about until I got into it. And just the fact that people can see me as I'm doing it is...
Well, maybe we'll just put like a book cover up or something. I mean, we can...
No, it's fine.
Get around. Okay.
I'm going to push through. It's just... I hadn't thought about that.
This was a good scene. This was their first time, right? No. This was their first time.
Yeah, it's their first, like, there was a kiss, but this
was their first time when it was like, let's get down to it. And I, like, it was just, I guess, you know what? It is really well written, because it was just like the little nuances of their... Ugh.
Yeah, there was never a false word. It's fantastic.
It was like hot down in my cooter.
I'm like, what are you doing? You're looking at your cooter.
I was waving at my cooter. I was doing this. I was fanning it off.
You can see your hand. So.
Oh, well, you know. Okay.
Yeah.
So give us a little synopsis of the story. First, I will say that the main character, the female main character, is Jolene.
So then I'm constantly hearing Jolene in my head.
Yeah, I'm so happy that they referenced that in the book, because like I could not stop hearing that. We have one friend that absolutely loves Dolly Parton and loves Jolene.
Who loves Dolly?
The one that has the absolutely adorable baby. That just had the absolutely adorable baby. The one that just had the adorable baby, and we see pictures of her and we're like, why is she just so absolutely adorable? Right.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute and fat. I love her.
And just, I got a video of her crawling yesterday. I'll show you later.
Baby.
Well, she doesn't crawl. She was just kind of like,
okay.
Anyway, tell a story.
So it opens, the story opens on Jolene and Jason, and their best friends are married, and they're moving to another state, and they have enlisted their
sister, right? Jolene is
sister. Jolene's sister, is her name Nikki or Nicole? And then Jason's best friend. And they're married, and you're right. And they're moving out of town, and they've asked them to be responsible for transporting their things. So they are driving the truck across several states to get their shit to them. And they hate each other. We find this out very, very early on, that they can't stand each other. They've known each other for years because of proximity, with their people. But like, he thinks that she's flighty and unfocused, and she just thinks he's an asshole, and they hate each other. And so they're thrust into this very small space together. And they've got to make it work. And they set out on their trip, and it's very quiet. And then eventually they start to open up to each other, and a whole bunch of shit happens along the way. Yeah. And then what I love is it doesn't end with the trip, right? Like then they've got all this other stuff that happens.
You're like, wait, there's a whole bunch of pages after this.
Yeah, there's all this other stuff that happens, and you really get deep into like their relationship and the rest of their lives, and it's just beautifully written. But so you see their relationship or non-relationship evolve over time, and this particular scene happens while they're on the road.
Yeah. So,
honey, you don't have to put that somewhere because it keeps vibrating, and we can totally hear it.
Sorry.
You know, it's funny. I just realized my child calls her best friend honey all the time. And I was like, oh, she got that from me. She be like, honey, I can't hear you. Or honey, you gonna have to go around the other way.
Long as her best friend ain't calling her bitch like I call you, we're good.
Exactly.
Okay, so something that I was thinking about as I like stepping back from the story, I think about the fact that I think the reason that they don't like each other is because he has his shit together. I use the quotation marks. And she doesn't, and he just can't stand, like, it's just like, not that I ever had my shit together, because, I mean, a bitch be flying by the seat of her pants. But people that are a hot mess express bother me. And in the sense of, like, how do you keep this shit together? Like, how do you do this? Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I can see how they didn't even give each other a chance, because it was like, oh, she a hot mess. And he was like, oh.
But the thing is that she's not anymore, right?
Exactly.
So he's got this view of who she used to be, her younger self, who did go through some things, who had a really short and tumultuous marriage, and that shit was over, and who, took a while to land on what she wanted to do with her career. But it's like he's punishing her for who she used to be.
When he was he had like so much shit happened to him in his life where he was forced. And so, I mean, actually that's a little bit further down, but I mean, I might as well talk about it right now. One of the themes in this is like how the loss of a parent affects how you move in life after that. And one of the things that you mentioned was that like Jason's dad died early. And so he always idealized him. Yeah. Is that a word? Idolized him. Whatever.
Both.
Y'all know what I'm saying.
Both of those words are correct in this instance.
So, and it made I identified with that so much.
Yeah.
Because like Kenrya knows, like I'd had to do like a significant amount of therapy around getting the 10-year-old idea of who my father was out of my brain. Because not only did it affect how I saw people, how I saw myself, how I moved in relationships, like that shit really, really, I mean, past like just the general, my mom pretty much had a mental break and we were old, like I was forced to do things that were much older than than I should. I was doing shit a 10-year-old shouldn't have to do.
You had to take on responsibility that you normally, hopefully, wouldn't have had to take on.
Yes, which turned me into a little adult, right? And I feel like I'm reclaiming my time as a 10-year-old. But even bigger than that, it's just like when I think about like what's an ideal relationship, I search for absolute perfection. Like, and I think there's a difference between perfection, like what's perfect for you and what's just perfection, right? And I was searching for perfection and not realizing I should have been searching for what's perfect for me. I share as much as you want, Killa. Both of your parents are here. Thank goodness. But you've noted on the show that you were raised by your father. Can you kind of explain, although it wasn't a loss of a parent, how did that?
Yeah. Now I see why you said share as much as you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, raised by my dad.
More than anything,
because my mom wasn't really. Go ahead.
More than anything, it's not that we're just trying to.
I want to tell my story and not everybody else's
exactly.
story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
That's something that I struggle with a lot, honestly, in my writing is like what parts of this story are mine to share and what parts are theirs to own. So I tend to talk about just how it impacted me. So yeah, my mom wasn't really able to take care of us. And at that time, there were just 2 of us. I'm like, now I'm one of 5. The fuck? I know.
I'm like, yeah,
there
are.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But so there were just the 2 of us. And so, yeah, my dad was it. And that meant, and I was 5 when I started letting myself in the house. I have been taking care of myself in inappropriate ways for 35 years. And I think I didn't really realize at the time how impactful that was or how inappropriate it was. It took therapy and it took having my own child and realizing that there were things that I had to do, making dinner for everybody, washing all the clothes, cleaning the house, looking after myself for several hours at the age of 5 every day, that I would never ask my child to do. Like never, ever, ever. Because not safe.
Yeah.
And traumatic in a lot of ways. And you see that in Jason, whereas, it's not necessarily that he felt like he had to take care of himself, but with him, it was like he had to take care of his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he's got these 2 things going on. One, he feels like, oh, now I'm the man in the house. It's my job to make sure my mama is good. And then the other part of it is that he had this, a child's vision of what his parents' relationship looked like. And so then no other relationships can measure up to this rose-colored vision that he had of a relationship that he was on the outside of. Like, my nigga, you don't know.
That took a lot out of me. Like, because after my father passed away, my mother went through some things and she was in relationships after that. Mm-hmm. And I always compared them to what she had with my father. Because, in my mind, it was this tragic love story. They were together for 10 years and then he died, or 11 years and then he died. And so I remember one time I was talking to my therapist and I was like, my mom, like, I didn't say it as casually as I'm saying it right now, but essentially I was like, my mom was perfect. Everything was perfect before my dad died. She'd come home from work. She cooked dinner. We'd have, and she was like, your mama could have been crying while she was cooking dinner. You just not know it. And I was just like, whoa, because now as an adult, you see like there's so much shit going on. So even if you had the most perfect relationship, there are outside external forces that are going to affect your relationship with that person. So and breaking it down,
people can think that their relationship is perfect from the outside, and then you find out how many times have you been surprised by somebody's divorce? Shit, everybody was surprised for some reason when I left mine. But that's because I didn't tell nobody nothing.
But you know what?
Of course you thought it was okay.
I actually think that now that we have age, looking back, we're not surprised.
You're like, oh, that shit was a little fucked up.
Like, yeah, like I was talking to a friend and we were talking about this program we used to do. And I remember when you first had your daughter, she was with us every single weekend. And at the time,
and I was driving from an hour and a half away with a newborn every fucking Saturday.
Yeah. And at the time we just looked at it like, oh, Kenrya wants to be, like she don't want to leave her baby. Mm-hmm. And yes, there is a point to that, but also every mama, she lying to you if she don't say it, has a fuck them kids moment. And you weren't allowed to have that. Mm-hmm. And we just, so even now, I think as an adult looking back, you thought you were keeping it from us and we were just dumb enough to not see it, but you wasn't.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, y'all. So I jumped ahead to talk about the loss of a parent, how it affects our relationships. That was something I was going to talk about a little later. What I wanted to start with was Jolene may have had a reputation for being a hot mess express. But I think it was just a reputation because she was young and trying to figure shit out. Can you hear my stomach?
Mm-hmm. No.
Oh, because my son was like, hey, motherfuckers. Okay. So, and one of the things that when you first sent this book to me was that you said this touches on vulnerability. And I think it is so difficult being vulnerable with someone who appears to have all their shit together in the ways that you don't. And because like we just went through this whole thing about how Jason really don't have his shit together in all areas, right? Whereas Jolene, she's pretty secure with her relationship with her family, right?
Yeah.
And
mostly.
Yeah. But she's still trying to figure herself out professionally. And yeah, she's been through some shit, you know? And so I can feel how, like, if I were in that position, I would have felt so, it would have been difficult for me to like truly be myself with Jason. Because it's like, damn, like, here you are with all your shit together and here I am falling apart. You know, I have felt that in relationships in the past. And well, obviously they didn't work out. But I think that part of the reason that I married my ex-husband was because I felt like he accepted me not having my shit together. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so even the guys that I dated that had their shit together, I mean, like, I was counting the wrong things because, like, yes, on paper they had their shit together, but they were fucking mama boys. They were trash.
Really
right? That's the bigger
together.
question. Like, what does having your shit together really means? And I think that I would always look at the things that I don't have and say, hey, they have their shit together because they can do X, Y, and Z and I can't. Whereas I'm looking at one piece of a whole. And that person and judging myself on one piece of who I am.
Right.
As opposed to the whole thing.
The totality
of the situation. Yeah. So I just found that very interesting about how we deal with this all brings me to how we deal with our insecurities in relationships with people as we think about like how, as we think about like what makes someone have their shit together. I think now that I'm dating, I have realized that there is less focus on the stuff that I used to believe had a guy shit together and more on the shit that like really makes difference, like really means something. So yes.
That list to help you do that, you know?
Bitch, I got the list.
I know.
But yeah, I mean, there are things on the list that is the whole job conversation, right? Remember we had that job conversation. And it's like, okay, I think I'd rather have a guy that was, a medical coder. No offense to medical coders, but you get what I'm saying. Like, just comfortable doing his little basic job. As long as he's like emotionally healthy. Basic. I'm using problematic language. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it feels super judgy.
It does. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be because I don't want, I want to make it clear that I'm not, again, I'm a hot mess. I have been a hot mess express. I understand the ideas of being a hot mess express, how it happens. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm judgy, but it's, I think I would be willing to discount the whole career area of a guy's life if he's emotionally healthy and can fucking tell his mama no and set some boundaries and, is emotionally intelligent. Right?
Yeah. So you've done some rethinking around what's important there.
Yeah, which is very interesting because my therapist told me that I need to reevaluate my...
Who told you that before that?
No. You know what? Whatever.
Pat myself on motherfucking back. That's fine.
Whatever. Have you had, I'm assuming it is. Tell me what has changed as you have worked through relationship sobriety? Like what once was hot that ain't that impressive?
Honestly, so I'll tell a story, and I think that illustrates it. I really used to just kind of fall into relationships. I would think someone was attractive. That was really my main criteria, that I liked their face. And if they like my face, then we would build garbage castles in the sky. And
Garbage castles in the sky, flying high. Sorry.
And the way that I got married was that I was telling my ex-husband about a friend in my grad school program who was in the country on a student visa. And she'd met someone while she was in New York, and they had been planning to get married, but their wedding was, I don't know, maybe a year off. And because they knew her visa was going to expire because we were going to graduate, they went to the courthouse and they got married. And then they were still planning their big wedding or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was telling him about it, and he was like, yeah, we should just do that. Now, it was not in my plan to get married at that point. Mm-hmm. I had this whole timeline in my head, and that was not it. But literally, the way I tell the story, I'm like, he said we should do that, and I was like, okay. Like that's how I got married 11 months after I met that nigga. And I think that kind of sums up the way that I approached relationships back then. It was like, oh, we like each other. That's cool. Let's do this. There was no real thought. There was no checklist. There was no intention. It was just, okay, now I'm with this person. And because I was a serial monogamist, which really, at least in my case, was code for didn't want to be alone, I would, fall into these relationships and be in them for years before I realized that they were not for me, and then moved on. And I was always the one who left. It'd be like I'd fall in, and then I would wake up and have an epiphany, and then I would peace out. And that was really the way that I carried it for years. Go ahead.
No, keep talking. I didn't want to lose it, but I'll write it down.
I think the contrast now, and I think you've used this word in describing the way that I approach things, is that I'm very intentional. So, when I started, that's when I decided, okay, I want to get on the apps and try to find somebody. At first, it was kind of that same thing. I was just kind of swiping and whatever. And then my trauma came in, and I had a panic attack after, what I thought was a decent date, and turned out to be somebody who I had to block in all the places, and started back to therapy, and, had to go through the whole sobriety situation, and no texting, no whatever. But in that time, it wasn't just cutting myself off from any type of a romantic situation. It was about really understanding what it was that I wanted and what I needed, which I honestly had never really asked myself before until things went bad. Mm-hmm. And in being able to do that, it allowed me to be intentional about searching for what I wanted instead of just falling into things. So that's the difference.
Yeah. So 2 things that I wanted to note. Serial monogamist. I think that we tend to get that term twisted, because I think that there's a difference between being a serial monogamist and just a person that doesn't date around. Does that make sense? I keep asking, does that make sense? So
I don't quite get the distinction.
Jumping from one relationship to one relationship. It meant
that I was in one.
There's no break. As soon as you're out of one, you're into another. That is very different from, I just don't like dating a lot. And so I'm intentional about who I find. And I'm going to, I'm not going to have 5 guys on the roster and see who shakes out. Like, that's just not how I operate. Yeah.
Which is what I did, but the roster would shake out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
like there was
but I just think that sometimes people will label people serial monogamous, not recognizing like, no, they're just really, I don't want to say lucky. They're good at like figuring out what they want and sussing that out and picking it, you know? So.
Yeah. And that was not me.
Exactly. And I think I was less of I just ended up in a relationship. I had lists in my mind. They were just fucked up lists. You know, like I was just looking at the wrong things. We always say, you looking at them shiny niggas and them shiny in college. We was looking at them shiny niggas. Them shiny niggas ain't got no hair. They're like Neanderthals. They got beer bellies.
Oh, no.
Whereas the niggas that we weren't paying attention to, I'm like, God, ooh, you shined up. You look good, you know? And so I was looking for the shiny niggas. And my list was full of shiny shit when it should have been full of like emotionally intelligent shit that would equip you for a motherfucking, I was about to say job. A relationship. Yeah. So, and again, I keep looking at this word vulnerability, but the idea of being vulnerable and like exposing yourself. Also, I've been watching Married at First Sight lately, which it's an interesting show. There are trash people inserted in it. Does that make sense? Okay. Like it's like a hot pocket. The concept is great, but
I don't. It's just they introduce people and you pick someone. I've never seen it.
The concept is great. The hot pocket shelf. The concept of a hot pocket is great. But do you want a pepperoni and cheese hot pocket or a ham and cheese hot pocket? You don't want a ham and cheese because it's just ham and cheddar. You want the marinara and the mozzarella and the pepperoni. So what they do.
This entire metaphor goes over my head.
Oh gosh. So
I know. You gotta school.
What they do on the show, they take people, they have them do like a battery of tests and psychological exams and like, are you a morning person or are you a night person? Do you eat with the sheets on or sheets off? Stuff like that. I don't know how that came about. But
did you say eat with the sheets on?
I don't know. So they take all these people and then they have like these psychologists and I think it's a pastor. They have all these people match them. Mm-hmm. And literally they plan a wedding and you show up and you're like, hey, and y'all get married, right?
Wow.
And there are some people that are like, I did this because I'm tired of dating. I want a marriage. And I know that I'm showing up to a nigga that, like, if there's no, like, what does he want? He says he wants it. No, we both signed this marriage contract. And the hot pocket shell of it is that they are forcing these people. And yes, it is super sped up, but they're forcing them to do things that I think that most people, I don't want to say don't do in relationships. They're forcing them to do things that you should do when you're like trying to find someone, a lover. So like one night they had the couple sit on the couch and they just asked a bunch of questions, but they were really tough questions. And they're questions that may be answered over the course of getting to know someone over 2-3 years, but they're compacting it all into a 6-week experiment. And so they have to be very like, you can't have subtleties at this point. It's like, we need big ass glaring signs. How do you feel about this? And so I like it. I like the show because they are really doing those big ass glaring signs of like, this is something you're going to have to think about if y'all being married. We're going to throw you in a situation and see how it happens. So like they had this, like 1 week, it was like, we're focusing on families. Like we're going to have your family and their family come together and y'all do some shit together. You know, like, and it's not like a flavor of love because I do love some shit like that. And there are some trash bag people. So Chris, that's making it very difficult. But the how they're doing it makes it like so great because it is literally like in your face. These are things you need to be thinking about and being intentional about. So I like the show because And I'm thinking about vulnerability because literally the episode that I just watched was about it. And there was this couple, and they're just the cutest couple. It's a little Black couple, and they're adorable. And one of their issues is that, like, the husband gets all, like, in his feelings and not acts a fool, but, he be, like, huffy and shit when things don't go well. And he's like, they went salsa dancing. He was like, he had an attitude when it was over. And he was like, it's because, if I'm being honest, it's because I looked like a fool. I gained weight. My shirt was too tight. And I just didn't want to embarrass myself in front of her. And she was like, bruh, like.
Just said that, my nigga.
Yeah, and she was like, I like the quirks. You don't have to always be perfect, And so, like, a lot of their conflict comes from him wanting to put on this perfect shell for her because he likes her so much, and that kind of thing. So it was just cute. And again, the show itself concept, I actually think is great, but they didn't then insert ham and cheese in it when it should be marinara and pepperoni and mozzarella.
Okay.
So yeah. And I think that's what I look forward to in a relationship. I'm talking my ass off. I was trying to give you a chance to talk, but no. But I think that's what I look forward to. I want to be vulnerable. I want somebody to be like, it's okay, good. I know you are addicted to buying t-shirts on Instagram. I love you in spite.
I mean, I guess being vulnerable is hard as hell. I mean,
for you.
Yes.
Sorry, y'all. I'm having hot flashes, so I'll put y'all on mute and fan myself.
Yeah, for me, it is difficult. I always feel better after I do it. And it's definitely the kind of thing where it takes practice to be better and better at it. So I work really hard at doing it. It helps that my partner makes it easy. He doesn't throw things up in my face. He doesn't make me feel silly for being vulnerable. He takes it seriously. So that's all I can ask for. And keep trying.
I think the reasons we feel this way comes from the same point. Like where we were carrying big shit on our backs, right? And so it's like, but see, I think this says a lot about our working relationship, how we work together. I'm like, fine then, fuck it, take it. That's me taking off the backpack of shit and handing my vulnerability to somebody. Like, oh, fine, take it. Whereas you're like, no, I'm not sure what you're going to do with that, so I'm going to hold on to it, right?
Is that how our approach work?
Oh, how we approach it. This relates to how we approach work because, like, it's like, we got to do it. It got to be right. I'm like, we can wing it.
No, ma'am.
I know. It works, y'all. I don't know how, but it works. Okay. They were on the road again. Just can't wait to get on the road again with me and my friends. Can't get wait to get on the road again. I need you to be more excited about singing, bitch. You be like, are you finished?
Wait for you to finish.
But I love a good road trip. I love a good road trip. I love a good road trip.
I like to get places. Like my daughter and I talk about what superpowers we wish that we had, and teleportation. Teleportation is mine. I would like to be able to do a hard blink and appear where the fuck I want to be.
And me too, because what's fucked up is by the time when teleportation becomes an option, even if it's like $1 billion, right? Like it exists, you can do it, but it's $1 billion. I will only travel by teleportation. Like,
so your ass gonna be in the house.
Yeah, and they're gonna be like, Erica, come out. I can't afford to teleport there. Bitch, nobody can. Well, I guess you don't need me. Because I do hate like airports and flying and all that. But when there's like a road, first it's gotta be a specific time. Like 4 hours max. That's DC to New York, right? 4 hours max. Good people. I don't have to be required to drive. And good music.
Mm-hmm.
And then I love a good road trip.
Those things can make them fun. They're just not my favorite. I mean, 2 hours is about what I want to do. And on the way there, it's always good, right? The music is cranking, got the window down. My kid is not, being bothered or bothering me, whatever. But the way
excited to go see what's on the other end.
Exactly. It's that coming home, my nigga. Like, that's the part I hate. And because of my fatigue issues, I be struggling. Like, pull over at a rest stop and close my eyes for 30 minutes struggling sometimes. It's just too much. I be tired. Getting there is always fine. Coming home is bad.
Yeah. I love a good road trip.
But it's been so long.
With snacks and
it's not even eating
sour straws. Like when we drive to Ocean City or when we do our family vacays.
Yeah, that's not too far. And I drive, so that's part of why you like it, because I'm driving. But see, that's only a couple of hours. It's not bad. And it's going to open itself up to 5 days on the beach. Like I said, on the way there, it's good. Beach. Yeah, on the way back, I'm like,
ugh. Remember I think it was our last trip where we came back from Ocean City, and like on the way, the entire time, the weather was beautiful. And literally as soon as we hit the Beltway, it got like hot and oppressive. It was just like,
yeah. And then there was that traffic. Remember
this trip
we were trying to
over.
It was kind of rough.
Just, no.
We ended up getting off and eating at Cracker Barrel.
We always eat at Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, but I mean, it was the traffic, and we were like, fuck it, let's just go eat.
I feel like I should not enjoy Cracker Barrel as much as I do, because everyone says it's racist and it feels like racism, but it's not.
Well, it's the name, and I always felt that way growing up. Like one of our good friends always wanted to go there.
Brown casserole, beans.
I ain't never had that. I get the catfish.
Oh, I gotta cook tonight.
I think tonight is gonna be the night. Normally, I try to make it to Friday. I've been doing really good at cooking all our meals, but I'm tapped out. Like I ain't got shit in there to cook.
Oh no,
I think I'll go shopping.
Tonight. I think
we're getting Chinese food. I'm over it.
I haven't had good Chinese in a minute. Okay, so yeah, love a good road trip. I think because I take lots of road trips. I think my favorite road trip. It's a toss-up. So the one where we took to our girlfriend's wedding, the mother of the cute kid, that was a fun one. Going there, coming back, it was horrible.
Well, y'all had an incident on the way there, too, that should have made it horrible.
Wait, you were with us on the way there.
I didn't ride with y'all. I flew in.
Right, no, you rode with us there and flew out.
I did not.
Didn't you?
I did not. I flew in and I flew out.
Somebody did. Well, then we left somebody and they flew back. Anyway,
I don't know. I did not ride with y'all. It was too far. I do not like riding in a car for that long.
I thought you were with us, but anyway,
no, I met y'all at the hotel, and I came in. I flew with my hair
wrapped up
in Bantu knots or something because I wanted to be able to take it down for the wedding. No, I came in on my own because I had a little baby at that point. It was definitely one of those I can't just be gone for all of this time situations because
And that's why it was horrible getting back, because I had to get back for your child's dance recital.
Oh, yes.
And we got,
and there was another traffic, reason why I couldn't
and it was just like,
I had to get home.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, so that was a good road trip going.
Except for your windshield got cracked. And we spent how many hours sitting there getting that shit fixed?
We went to Safe Light.
Oh, but we had that food.
Oh my God. So we were in Kentucky and we went to the most Kentuckiest ass. Like, and don't think like white people, style. KFC. No. Like, think of like an old lady with like receding hairline and a hairnet and a gold, open face gold, like right here, and then plastic gold. Like, what you want, baby?
God, I love us. Yeah. It was so good.
It was so, every time I think about it.
Even so that was for me trying to find stuff that didn't have meat in it, I still was able to find some good food.
and food is everything. Food rules everything around me. Frame, get the money. Okay. So another good road trip, and it was for a really sad situation. our girlfriend's mother passed away, and her funeral was in like
South Carolina,
butt crack, North Carolina.
Was it in North Carolina?
She's from
Yeah.
We stopped at this like spot. First, it was like the crew, because you know when your girls family like we mount up like we don't fuck around. Yeah. So we all piled up,
and we went to in the dark in the morning.
We sure did, and we drove, and we were like, okay, we're gonna stop and get something to eat before we go to the funeral, because this was just a up there and back.
We stayed overnight. Some of us, came back the next morning.
Me, you, and another girlfriend stayed. That was the night your daughter went, what? Was it? Yes. Oh my. We were like getting ready to go, and I guess she thought we were leaving her, because we like gathered everything and we're like, okay, we're gonna pick up the baby last and put her in the car. And she just heard too much shuffling, and she was like dead asleep. She woke up. What?
That's also the day that she was doing Beyonce choreography in between the hotel room beds on the floor with her legs up. She was doing Girls Run the World.
Yes, she was, because she kept going like this with her feet. Okay. But okay, so going there, it was great, because it was like all the girls, we just going to see our girlfriend, take care of her, love on her. And then we stopped at this like, this shit looked like a porch. It was like what Cracker Barrel wants to be. Like Cracker Barrel is like Disney World. And this spot was like the shit that Disney World based their shit on.
Yeah, it was good.
I remember our one girlfriend who don't eat meat. She had some beans, and she was this was one of them spots where you order beans, right? Yeah. She was fucking them beans up. And I'm like, yo, that's meat in them beans. She was like, I don't care. Oh my goodness, that was a good road trip.
Yeah, it was a good trip. And then we actually, sometimes when we go for the funerals, because, we're at the age where this is the thing that we do, we don't always get to actually spend time with them. We go in, we see them at the service, we're there for support, and then, they've got other stuff going on and we've got to leave, especially if it's in the middle of the week. And that was one where we actually got to love on her. Like, we went to dinner. She came back to our home. Like, we got to spend a bunch of time with her. And it was...
Did we go to Cheesecake Factory?
We did go to Cheesecake.
Because Cheesecake then became an after-funeral tradition. Because after my mom's funeral,
was the beginning of
we all went to Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah, that became our after-funeral tradition. Remember, we had to wait a long-ass time, as per usual. And that was when I told everybody the true story of how I got divorced. Remember, you were the only person at the table who knew.
Oh, yeah. Niggas was crying and stuff. But,
yeah.
We got a good-ass group of friends.
We do. Man, I love y'all.
Yeah, I love y'all. Okay. Girl.
We digress so far. I don't know.
No, because I feel like I'm going through shit, and we just hitting on books that is just like fucking me up, hitting me in the gut. So in the story, Jolene decides to strike out on her own and build her own business. And as someone that is staring that in the face, that shit is scary. Kenrya is smiling because she's done it and is doing it.
I've done it a couple of times, and it is. I mean, the first time it wasn't scary because I got laid off, and I was like, well, fuck it. I got unemployment. Let's see what this thing do. But the second time...
I accidentally touched the button on my fan.
The second time was me walking away from what at one point, like what 25-year-old Kenrya thought was her dream job. Mm-hmm. And that was considerably scarier because also I had a lot more responsibility. I didn't just have to keep me alive. I had to keep myself in.
Because that's the thing. Like, I always would tell myself, like, you know what? Fuck it. If things fall apart, it's just me. I don't give a fuck. What we gonna do? I'm gonna just go sleep on one of my girlfriend's couches.
Mm-hmm. Easier to do when it's just you.
Yeah. But now I got a child and a dog and family that lives with that, I don't want to say lives with me. We live together. And so it's a little more difficult. Yeah. But I loved that a big piece of this story was someone kind of realizing, hey, I can do this on my own. I can do this for myself, I think that for me, I'm saying the reason that I am striking out on my own is because I want to be able to put more time into my own projects. Where, like, the truth is, there's going to be a lot of it where I'm just going to be hustling for the man under my own name. But I am confident that I'll be able to build it so that I'll be able to rise out of, hustling more for myself as opposed to hustling more for the man under my name.
I mean, here's the thing. I think that people don't necessarily understand this until they're entrepreneurs, but working for yourself is kind of a misnomer. Like, you still have to have clients. There are still people who you have to answer to. Now, there's no one over your shoulder, right? Like, which is a big part of it for me. I do not do well with someone looking over my shoulder telling me what the fuck to do or asking me why I didn't do something. That's not for me. In any aspect of my life. But I still have clients that I have to deal with, whose egos I have to dance around, whose, I have to, when I set production schedules, I still have to adhere to them and follow up with them when they don't get stuff back to me when they're supposed to, and, all of that. So it's, sure, I'm working for myself and running my own business, but I still have to deal with other people. Well, I'm not working for the man, but I'm definitely working with that nigga. And so that brings me back to that whole, like, trying to make sure that I am cultivating the work and the life that I want, right? So when I am considering new work, when someone reaches out to me and asks me to work on a project, because thank God I'm at that point where people, hit me up from my website and ask me for things. And the first thing I do is I feel in my body how I felt when I opened the email. If it felt like panic, then usually the answer is no. Unless it was just panic because it was something that was challenging and I need to, like, sit with the fact that I'm ready for exactly to stretch. But if I feel that way and I close it immediately, usually that means that you can go ahead and send them. I got a little a cut and paste thing that I send people.
Kenrya keep a template on hand.
I do, because I don't have time to rethink how to say no to this thing every fucking time. Yeah. Exactly. If it makes me feel sleepy, then I say no. If it falls outside of the parameters of the list of work that brings me joy, which feels like a misnomer, but capitalism, like, I have a list of the work that I do and it's ranked by how much joy it brings me. And if it's at the end of things, like, quite frankly, I'm a writer, but I really at this point only want to write things that like my books. If it ain't a book, I don't necessarily want to write. I write scripts. I kind of enjoy that, but that's also sometimes makes me feel stressed out. But any other thing that somebody's asking me to write, don't bring me joy. No, thank you. And so when it comes to being an entrepreneur, at first, a lot of times you got to say yes to the things that don't necessarily make you smile immediately, because you got to get yourself a base. But the hope is always that you get to the point where you can be like, don't want to work with that nigga.
I don't want
thank you. I don't want.
I don't get out of bed for $3 million or whatever the girl said.
Oh, it's $1 million or some shit. Yeah, I mean, and I ain't there, but I am very consciously saying no to things that I don't want to do, and saying yes increasingly to the things that I want to do. Although, honestly, for the first couple of months of this year, I was saying no to literally everything. I looked at my bank account and was like, bitch, you got to say yes to something.
You got to show them a little leg. Let them kiss you a little bit.
All right.
Alrighty. Well, I thought this was like just a dope as hell book. Again, Mimi Grace.
Yeah.
That sex scene made me tingle. And We will include links as usual in our notes so that you can get the book for yourself. You got anything else to add, Kelly?
No, I think that's it for the book. Let's take a quick break and pay some bills and come on back. Hey, y'all. Today's a great day to start your own podcast. Whether you're looking for a new marketing channel, have a message you want to share with the world, or just think it'd be fun to have your own show like us, podcasting is an easy, inexpensive, and fun way to expand your reach online. And Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. Your show gets put online and listed in all the major podcast directories like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, literally everything, within minutes of finishing and uploading your recording. We use it here for the Turn On, and I can truly attest to the fact that it's pretty fucking dope. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners, and the team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. So join over 100,000 podcasters like us who are already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Just click the link in our show notes and you'll be able to get your own account set up. And if you sign up for a paid plan, you'll get a $20 Amazon gift card and support our show. Let's create something great together. Sign up for Buzzsprout today.
First, I like your nose ring.
Thank you.
Yesterday you mentioned it, but today I'm like seeing it. I like it. Okay, so this is our part of the show where we talk about what?
What's turning us on?
You gotta say it sexy.
Oh, okay. What's turning us on?
Yeah. Okay, so this week what's turning us on is this little rubber ducky here.
It's so cute.
So a few reasons why I like it. One, this sits next to my nightstand. It literally just sits out because guess what? You don't know what the fuck it is. Now, I don't have a child like Kenrya's that will walk in and out of my room picking up shit. So don't, if that's the case, don't.
Well, no, we have a rule against that now, but that is a thing that happened. Did I ever tell that story about how I found my?
I don't know.
Yo, she called me into her room or something, and I look over and that ain't why she called me. She just wanted me to come look at something, and I look over and on her shelf, she got all these little plastic toys lined up, and right in the mix is an egg. She had pulled that shit off the charger and put it in her room.
She's like, it's cute. And it wiggles.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was color coordinated with her toys. And so when she wasn't looking, I just
like, that's mine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, she's like,
okay, so
now everything is above
so
her head.
This little thing here is a rubber ducky. It is cute. I adore it. It kind of, so it's a vibrator. Wait, hold on. So it vibrates, right? Can y'all hear that?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, yes, we can definitely.
My bad. So
no, I think unless people see just how powerful it is, but you have to turn it off. It also
has. Wait, hold on. Okay, so it's a vibrator, but it also has this little thing here, which is suction. So it has a little. I was showing Kenrya this earlier.
Oh my God.
It sounds like
For
a
those
duck,
who
right?
cannot see, you can head over to our YouTube channel. Just search the Turn On podcast.
You can watch Erica playing with this little duck.
Do this on
but yeah,
her
so
cheek.
it has a little suction and vibration, so you can like use it on your nipples to stimulate yourself or a partner, or use it on your clitoris. So I love it. This is cute. It's just I would say quiet, but it's okay, but it's cute. It's waterproof. It is silicone, so use water-based lubricants with it. You can find it on our website. We'll include the link to purchase it. This is one of the toys that I am selling through my company. And we'll include, like I said, it'll be a link.
What's your company called?
The Erotic Escape. Say it.
The Erotic.
Thank you, Kenrya. Okay, so it's great. I love it. It's cute. And yeah, get it for yourself. Rubber ducky, you're the one. Rubber ducky, you touch my clit and make me go like, ooh, yeah.
I feel like they probably won't like that use of that
Whatever.
song.
Okay, so with that, this wraps up this episode of The Turn On.
It does indeed. We are Kenrya and
two hoes making it quack.
Making it clap.
Boo! Bye, y'all.
This episode was produced by us, Kenrya and Erica, and edited by Ballistic. The theme music is from Brazy. Now you can support The Turn On and Get Off. Subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, then drop us a 5-star review and you'll be entered to win something that's turning us on. Just post your review and email a screenshot to us at theturnonpodcast@gmail.com to enter. Our Patreon page is also live, and if you become a supporter today, you'll get access to lots of goodies, including 2-for-1 raffle entries. And don't forget to email us your book recommendations and your pressing sex and related questions. You can follow us on Twitter at The Turn On Pod and Instagram at The Turn On Podcast. And you can find links to books, merch, transcripts, guest info, and other fun stuff at theturnonpodcast.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon. Holla.